Um, Today we are going to have to improvise because our expected host had an emergency and is not able to join us. I regret to inform you this, so you have to contend with me. I would have had Felisa do the hosting, but we didn't discuss it. But if you wish to improvise, you are welcome to do so. So it's going to have to be a roundtable discussion with everybody. I will introduce everyone, and we will then start the forum. So today is the International Day of Peace. I wish you all a glorious peace, and that we have a graceful deliberation today. So because I've been doing logisticals and I wasn't really prepared to host, I must confess that I was just going to listen to everybody, but let me see. Yeah, the importance of the of hosting, of actually observing this program today is so critical. And I just want to talk from my heart. I was going to look for a quick script or something, but it's too challenging at the moment. So I would just talk from my heart, and I hope that you allow me. The issue of peace is so important. As a matter of fact, I believe the most important issue in the world today, because without peace, we cannot grow. Without peace, we cannot produce the optimum level of our capacity or potential. So it is so critical that we ensure peace in society. I know that all of us here today are here because we have been working on this issue of peace. So the concept of peace in itself does not need to be explained to you, because that's the work that we do, and that's why we're here. But for the purpose of this particular forum and the observance, I think it is important that we all speak from our heart in such a way that has empathy about the work we do and harmonizes that with the expectation and the suppositions of the public, the world public. Let's take the United Nations, for example. The United Nations talk a lot about peace. And the effort of the United Nations is all about peace. And the United Nations have achieved really tremendous state of peace in the world. We have to acknowledge that. Yes, of course, it was not able to stop the Second World War. It was not able to stop the war in Iraq. It was not able to stop the war in Argentina. It was not able to stop the war in Afghanistan. But at least we know that there's some rationale there. And of course, it was not able to stop the war in Ukraine because people with power is a really contentious issue. And we all know this, right? So, and to drive this further on this particular theme of ending racism and building peace, it becomes really critical, because if we look at the issue of wars, we'll see that it's really rooted in racism, right? Um, the Civil War in America was rooted in conflict of race. Um, all over the world, we see, whether it's ethnic issues or whether it's racial issues, there is some kind of cultural conflict or feud that developed into this type of situation. So in the world today, there is an understanding of a, if you may, of a, um, we have something that is a cold cultural war on race. That war, of course, on and off, gets blown into physical conflicts when you have protests, riots, or reactions of, we've seen so many of that, whether it's killing, burning, or whatever the case may be. But what I want us to look at today is not just the United States, but also the entire world, and we all have some of these experiences, and be able to compare the potential of humanity to build peace and what we are doing wrong and what we could be doing right. What has been done before, and what are the shortcomings, how did they fail, where they failed, those who have done, all these protagonists of peace, how were they able to solve the problem, what are their shortcomings, why are we still fighting today to bring peace among humanity. So I thank you so very, very much for the opportunity to talk to you, and for really rallying together on this. I just reached out to you last night, and here we are. So I'm really extremely grateful for your trust to address this issue together. So I will yield first to the most senior member of us here, and I would attest that he's the wisest of us, the Honorable Gandikota Aryama. Mr. Aryama is an engineer by education and training. Over the years, he has worked as an engineer, but he's also the spiritual guide for so many people from the I would actually like for him to make a short introduction, because I don't have to script, as I mentioned. So forgive me, please. Go ahead, sir. The floor is yours.
Namaste to you all. I'm very happy to be here with you. And my name is Gandikota Aryama. Gandikota is my family name, and I write it first. Aryama is my given name, and I write it last. So I'm Mr. Aryama, and then when you get to know me better, I'm still Aryama. So, and I'm an electrical engineer by training and profession, and I've worked with various companies, Electronic Associates, Bellcore, part of Bell Labs. And then I worked at Lucent Bellcore too, Lucent Technologies, Bell Labs. And then finally at AT&T Labs. I was also a consultant for the United Nations on power systems for 5 years. So right now I'm still working with AT&T Labs, AT&T Labs. So I'm very happy to be here with you today on this International Day of Peace celebration or meeting. And I'm an advisor for the Sri Satya Sai Baba Associated Sarvadharma Service Center in Howell, New Jersey, which conducts service activities in the local and international communities, including soup kitchen activities for the locals, yoga classes, spiritual events, various meetings, disaster relief activities worldwide, etc. So it's an honor and privilege to be here with you today. Thank you very much, Brother Wale, for inviting me for this meeting for the International Day of Peace, and then bringing us all together in this very important undertaking. So I'll just begin with a prayer for peace and enlightenment. It's called the Gayatri Mantra. It's a very ancient meditative verse that was composed thousands of years ago, and it is meditated by millions of people over the thousands of years. And it goes like this. Om Bhurbhuva Svaha Tat Savitar Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yonah Prachodayat. And the meaning is, we meditate on the effulgence of our Supreme Lord, who is our creator, inspirer, and source of eternal joy. May this light inspire and illumine our intellect and dispel the darkness. So this is a universal prayer, can be chanted by anyone, men, women, of all types, all races, all peoples. And so it's a very important one, and I try to chant it as many times in the day as I can, so that we bring our light and share it with everyone. So some quotations from our Guru, Sri Satya Sai Baba. He's a Guru with universal views. He's not just for Hindus, or he's actually for all Christians, Muslims, etc. His only visit outside India was a trip to Kenya and Uganda in 1968. There's a long connection between India and Africa for tens of thousands of years. It has been lost and distorted, but it is there, and it is known to some people, and we have to try to build up on that we lost in the years of colonialism. And so the quote is, if there is righteousness in the heart, there will be beauty in the character. So it begins with the individual. Have righteousness in your heart. You know what is right and always follow the right. If there's beauty in the character, there will be harmony in the home. So peace begins at home. When there's harmony in the home, there will be order in the nation, in one nation. And then when there's order in that nation, there will be peace in the world. So one by one, starting from the individual to the nation, to all these international communities, we have to begin with righteousness, begin with what is right. So there is only another quote, there is only one religion, the religion of love. So nobody created religion, it's there. That is God's love that is there right from the beginning. There is only one language, the language of the heart. So you don't need to speak, just be kind. There's only one caste, the caste of humanity. In other words, we have no top and bottom, no left and right, no poor and rich. We should all be together. And there is only one caste, the caste of humanity. There is only one law, and that is the law of karma. Do unto others as you would have others do unto you. If you just follow these simple things that are in all religions, then we will progress and have peace. There's only one God, and He's omnipresent, and He's there for everyone. Another quote, start the day with love. Spend the day with love. Fill the day with love. End the day with love. This is the way to God. Keep love as the foremost, and all your actions will be towards that, the truth and love. That is the way to God. Honor all religions. Each is a pathway to God. And finally, everyone has to find his own way, but find the way of righteousness, love, and it will get you to peace. So the basic principles of all faiths are satya, truth, dharma, right conduct, shanti, peace, and prema, love, and ahimsa, non-violence as much as possible. So one cannot change others. One can try to change oneself, transform your heart to one of love, and peace will come. All are children of God. This is the brotherhood of man and the fatherhood of God. People pay lip service to this, but this must be implemented. The sacred book Bhagavad Gita says, all beings of the world are part of my eternal self. This is what Sri Krishna said in the Gita. All beings are therefore eternal. All are manifestations of the one divine. Though forms are different, the Atma or the soul is one. Love is the most essential nature of the Lord. It is not an attribute. If everyone practices love, there will be no agitation in the world. We must have unity of thought, word, and deed. The path to union as God is through the discipline of love and service to man. Walk the talk. So the essence is love all, serve all, help ever, hurt never. Practice this every day, and that will then spread. You will then influence others that way without trying to lead them. Just do it. It may take a lifetime or more, but just 11 seconds of focused meditation will reach samadhi or union with God. When the United Nations was formed in the 1940s, and in fact, my father joined the UN in 1951, there was great hope that the world was changing from colonialism and racism to one of peace and brotherhood. Many people worked and continue to work for progress in mankind and to the goal of peace. It's had its ups and downs, but we must keep trying for the sake of the hungry and the poor. It is incredible that even in this day and age, we have this. We have poverty, hunger, and war. In this day and age, when everyone is supposed to have learned the truth and peace and love. So the new India, which was the refuge of persecuted minorities for thousands of years, it was a homeland for the Jews, for Islamic people, for Christians, for Buddhists. Even now, the Tibetan Buddhists find a home there when they're persecuted in their own land of Tibet. So India is now back after many decades of struggle and is back to work with all nations together at the United Nations and outside. So I conclude with a prayer. Samastha lokaha sukhino bhavantu, samastha lokaha sukhino bhavantu, samastha lokaha sukhino bhavantu. And this means, may all beings in all worlds be happy. So this is the universal prayer of peace that has been chanted in India for thousands of years, and it will come. The peace will come. We all have to work for it. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Peace, peace, peace. Namaste, and thank you all. May God bless you all.
Thank you so very much, sir. It's always a joy to listen to you, and you never fail to send chills and through me. I always have goose pimples when you speak, because it really sinks in what you say, and having known who you are and what you have been doing and what you dedicated to, you are a true inspiration, and I'm really humbled and grateful that you are here with us today. So one of the things that I'm really
very
trust
honored
about,
by those words. Thank you very much.
thank you, sir. They are true, as you know. So I want us to be able to address this issue together. So I welcome questions from all the panels, and don't forget, this is a closed quarter. It's just us amongst ourselves. This is going to go to the public later. But right now, I want us to engage ourselves. If you have any question for Dr. Gandikota, feel free to express yourself as candidly as you possibly can, and honest, of course, so that we can get real answers. One of the things, or some of the things that I would like us to address today, is a full understanding of what is peace, and is peace possible without justice, in terms of the challenges of racism, the effect of racism, and how do you expect somebody who, or people who has been under the burden and pressure of racism to be peaceful. All of these are possible, but we'll learn to, it's good for us to discuss it and know how people can still be able to compose themselves and be civil and under all these pressures, right? And we know even until recent times that the challenges of racism are with us, which really greatly challenges the peace of the person and of the society. Now, there's something called crime against the peace of the society. This is a very important law that is often undermined and not looked at enough. But I think there is a case here. I am not for tit for tat, but it is very important for us to ease the burden of the society when it comes to the imbalances created over a long period of time by an unjust system. So I want us to look at this again as possible and honest and candid as we possibly can to do justice to the issue so that we can provide value for the global public. So anybody who any question at any time can please refer to that and question, for instance, Dr. Gandhi-Kota that I just spoken. If you have a question for his deduction, please be confident and forthcoming with it before we move to the next speaker. Any questions, please?
It's not really a question as much as it is a comment. So give me, first and foremost, I'm so honored, Dr. Gandhi-Kota. I am in Central America, so I'm navigating this time being able to have the video work. So if it does work, we know it's because of prayer. And if it doesn't work, then I'll just keep speaking. Peace has different meanings and different connections for many of our sisters and brothers across the globe, yeah? And please work. Ta-da! Great. Namaste. Greetings, everyone, and blessed International Day of Peace. I always ask that our Mother, Father, Creator is present so that what I share is really coming from a very medicinal home, grounding space. And when you were sharing those words of power, those words of praise, I would ask, what would you recommend for us to be able to restore, and I'm not saying religion in the schools, but just restore spiritual practices that manifest peace? Because we're very good, collectively speaking, maybe not those in this space, but in the society at fostering violence, over-sexualization, and a lot of the other ills. However, one of the things we did in one of our university settings when we saw that peace was not in place and there was a lot of contention, we just did Ariyanka, breathing. We just did yoga. We made it fun so that persons didn't feel we were like, trying to convert them into anything. And I just would ask most humbly, Dr. Gandhi-Kota, what are some things that you would recommend that we can extend from what you just shared with us this day?
I think what you just said about yoga is a discipline, and it brings together some harmony within oneself. So transformation of the heart begins with yourself. And that's why yoga is very important. It focuses the attention on the internal to develop oneself, to be loving and caring with everyone. So that's a very important thing. And you don't have to make it denominational. It can be, when I was going to school, we had, civics classes where we were taught what's right and wrong, what a citizen is responsible for in the country. How come we don't have those? And if I may say, the Bhagavad Gita of Sri Krishna, that is 5,000 years old, that is the guideline for dharma. Dharma meaning righteous action. In other words, you have to do what is right. And there are circumstances where it's difficult to do. But this is, and how one chooses to do it may depend on what kind of setting you're in. If you're a warrior, you may have to fight. If you're a teacher, you may have to teach what's right and what's wrong and guide people. And if you're just a farmer, you have to continue with your work and feed the people. Okay, so it is not a universal one thing that everyone has to do. The society as a whole must move forward. And I was always inspired in the 60s with the civil rights movement in the United States, and also by Nelson Mandela in Africa. You know, there are absolutely horrific regimes. It's very difficult to do anything. But in spite of that, those who are warriors did what they had to do. Those who are teachers did what they have to do. Those who have to take care of the family, they have to do what they have to do. So society as a whole has to react, to change itself and evolve from the chaos and racism and colonialism that we had across the world. The sun never set on the British Empire, they used to say. But that meant that the whole world was in this contagion of colonialism and had to evolve out of that, and it did. Because every country had to do its own bit. And so we all have to work together constantly. Those who are warriors have to do their tough work. It is tough to sacrifice, but only through sacrifice will you get the eternal values. So.
Thank you so very much, sir. And I would like to chime in as well. And again, this is open to everyone before we go to the next speaker. The premise that Dr. Chenzira brought forward is very important to address, and address it in a way that it is encompassing, let me use that word, because that's one of the reasons that we need to understand what peace actually is. When we talk about peace in oneself, peace of mind in oneself, of course, most of these are often measured by our satisfaction, isn't it? Our desires versus our satisfaction. That's pretty much what peace would be for us. We want to be secure, we want to be at ease, we want to be doing everything that we would like to do and make sure we have successful outcomes or experiences and so on and so forth, right? So when we're talking about things like yoga, which disciplines the person, as Dr. Gandikota has explained, is allows the person to be disciplined enough in order to control oneself, to withstand the winds and the challenges and the waves of time that comes at every individual at various times in our lifetime, isn't it? So those disciplines are good for all the intended purposes. But when we're talking about peace, I guess we are talking an encompassing virtuous way that has to do with the society, which includes civility. So it's not just about oneself or one's family. Rather, it is about our exchanges, the value of our exchanges, acknowledgement, our beingness, our togetherness, and most importantly, the comprehension and comprehensivism of all our virtues together. It's very, very critical that we have this understanding that that is what peace is. It all comes down, of course, to the golden rule: do unto others as you like them to do unto you, right? But of course, we have some perverse people who like to do perverse things to themselves, and other people are comfortable with. However, that's the concept. A lot of people who are unjust are those who do things that they cannot accept to others, and that's where we have some of these challenges. But I also realize that much of the problem that brings uneasiness to us in our societies are some of the perceptions that we have about each other. So not now, but I would like us to address some of the big challenges in the room when it comes to the protagonist of peace across time, Okay, so we'll get to that in a minute, but right now I'd like to introduce Dr. Byron Price, who's a professor of public administration at Medgar Evers, and our proposed president of African Views Organization in the United States. He's a very dear friend and a wonderful colleague. It is my pleasure to present him. Feel free to please introduce yourself properly. And we would like to hear from your experience, because the African American experience is one of the richest experiences in the world. And I mean that from my heart. I love this culture and I love my people. I love my people because I know my people in the heart. Now, I've seen what the African Americans have gone through. Of course, I understand what the Africans have gone through, and it's equal in all bases. However, there are some richness to what the African Americans have gone through, and I would like us to discuss some of that today. And I think one of the Dr. Price, you are one of the people who can help us to understand this from your standpoint. We don't have to know everything, but that's why we're here. We are going to ask questions and fill in the gaps. I thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Wale, and thank you, colleagues, for allowing me to share. Well, it's interesting you asked me, Dr. Wale, because I grew up in Memphis, Tennessee, and I remember when Dr. King was assassinated in 1968 in Memphis. I was 5 years old, going on 6 years old, and I remember all the burning and looting, and I guess I was confused as a kid because I remember at the time, because I was a pretty precocious child, that Dr. King only talked about peace and equality and love, but he was violently murdered. And so, of course, I couldn't connect that. And then I remember there being only one hospital that Blacks could be born at, the county hospital in Memphis, Tennessee. I also remember all the police and National Guards that were there. And then I remember as I grew up, I remember seeing that I never saw my dad till I was 26 years old. And then, as I began to study public policy, you understand why a lot of the men were removed from the homes through public policy. They discouraged, they would take women's welfare benefits if they had a man staying there, although they wasn't a husband. And so when you think about those kind of things, those institutional barriers, which really has sort of like created a lot of harm to those respective communities. Then you think about employment, discrimination in employment, housing. We were all stacked in projects. And the historically Black college was across the street from the projects. If you notice, most of the colleges, we didn't dream about going to Harvard or anywhere else. They wanted us to stay and go across the street to the college. They wanted to keep us confined in one area. But I think for me, as Dr. Gundy talked about, he talked about the spiritual aspect. Our grandmothers and mothers kept us in the church, although a lot of us probably have moved away from the church, but I think the church gave us that grounding to sort of embrace the beatitudes of all religions and so forth. And I think one of the things, I tell you a quick joke, because as I started to sort of like study like metaphysical stuff, that was the only way I could move past the hate that people had for us and to stop hating people, because you have to start to sort of like liberate yourself, as Einstein says, you have to liberate yourself. And that's the only way you can sort of have peace. As Black Elk says, he said, peace comes from within the souls of men when they realize their oneness with the universe. Black Elk says that, and until you understand that oneness with the universe and the law of consubstantiation, that all things come from one source. So my blood courses through your vein and your blood courses through my vein. And when I do something for you, I do it for myself. So how can I give back to myself? There's no such thing as reciprocity, because when you do it for you, I do it for God and I do it for myself. But when I hurt you, I hurt myself. And so I think it's only when you begin to become spiritual can you really understand peace and embrace peace and love And so many of us really have objectified. Love is transactional for many of us, and it's been objectified in so many ways. That's why, and plus, I think one of the major reasons why we can't have peace through religion also is because man creates, and man has created the concept of God in his image. And as a result, God can be inhumane. That's why God can fly a plane into a building and destroy people, because man has given God anthropomorphic qualities. And so that's why God can be jealous. That's why God could give the Israelites the Hittites and Jebusites land. So you can say God was an imperialist, or if God had a chosen people, God is biased. And so since man has sort of placed all of these sort of attributes on God, projected on God, that's why it's difficult to have peace. And so I like to tell this joke about the Zen master. He said the Zen master came from Tibet to New York, right? And he goes up to the hot dog vendor and says, "Make me one with everything." And so the vendor fixes the hot dog, hands it to the Zen master, and receives a $20 bill. And the vendor stashes the $20 bill, right, in the cash box and closes the top. And then the Zen master asks, "Where's my change?" And the vendor says, "Change must come from within." Okay. So the moral of that story is the Zen master was kind of upset, but he was preaching, Zen master preached change from within. But when it was time for him to sort of like understand what happened, most of us preach a good game. So going back to when you think about public policy, like Black people built businesses in North Carolina, Tulsa, Oklahoma, Rosewood, and then our government utilized what they call urban renewal, but it was actually urban removal. They ran highways through, and even Detroit as well, and destroyed a lot of our industries. But I think I still go back to, we need to go back to what those our ancestors did. When you think about how they built, we were forced to be unified. We were forced to have solidarity. We were forced to build our communities. And now we move so far away from that, and we don't understand. That's what I like about African views and some of the things Zalanda is doing about this embracing our culture, going back to sort of getting grounded in our culture and understanding our culture. And, for me, when I think about my experience as African-American, especially as a male, I've had to navigate discrimination from the police. Even when I was in the military, I had certain jobs that they felt that white West Pointers should have, but I was a Black officer. So, but I think one of the things that bothered me most is, people talk about external racism, but I think the racism within the community is far more destructive. Because like I've been in here in South Africa, I'm in South Africa now, and when I see in the United States, I see how I'm in Sandton, one of the richest areas in Africa, I think, in one of the richest cities in Africa. And I just see so many people walk over the homeless. And, when you think about the pandemic, and then you see us, we allow others to sort of take other people's land, it's valuable. We ride by, we don't help each other. And so I think that's the kind of racism we need to solve, because no one respects us as Africans or African Americans. They summon the African Americans and Africans to the White House, to China. And when we speak before the UN, no one shows up at the UN. And so I think we have to really, before we can get people to respect us, we have to be known for being enterprising and self-sufficient. And then we'll get more respect. I don't think we're gonna continue to have human and civil rights until we control the economics in our community, until we sort of like build systems and so forth. And I guess I'll share one or two more things and I like what Dr. Gundy said also about meditating. A lot of us don't meditate, try to center. And that's one of the things that has helped me navigate being a Black man, because like I said, I get stopped all the time. And when I drive my car, police ask me where the drugs at. Tell me I don't look like I belong in that neighborhood. And those little aggressive actions can really destroy some people. But I think you have to focus on your spirituality and find people, excuse me, within your community that you can bounce things off of, but kind of think are like-minded. And I learned to meditate by reading a lot of metaphysical books also. And I think one of the last quotes that I share is Lao Tzu, I may be mispronouncing it, from the Tao Te Ching, says that ordinary men hate solitude, but the master makes use of it, embracing his aloneness, realizing he is one with the whole universe. I go back to understanding that we're one with the universe. And so that's why I'm in Africa trying to collaborate with my African brothers and sisters, because I have access to some technology. And so far too often, we just want to exploit, but I'm here looking for partnerships and fellowship. And so I kind of will stop there, but I just think it's very important for us to sort of think about how do we strengthen our respective communities. This is not where you sort of isolating from yourself, but you need to strengthen your communities, because you know there's other communities, they come in, they have Korean Association, Chinese Association, I mean, Chinatown and so forth. And so they strengthen and they still interface with others, but their communities are strong. The Jewish community, that's why people respect them. But for us, we continue to suffer from racism and sort of divestment and how people feel about us, and the police brutality, because we're not strong as a community. So I stop there.
Thank you so very much. You touched the very important points, which are so significant in so many levels. I took some notes on some of the concerns that you brought forward. You also addressed the issue of finding mechanisms for self-discipline. Again, some of the things that were done before, the importance, of course, of the churches in the African community, because this is really a gravitational force for the community, where people can actually gather without being prosecuted. As you know, all the Jim Crow law forbade the gathering of Africans, and in many ways. So the churches became a place of sanctuary, and therefore a lot of things developed from the churches. And because of the many abuses over the time, whenever the Africans are able to rise up, break the challenges of status quo, they quickly get repressed. Leadership decapitation, like the killing of Medgar Evers, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, and so many leaders of the African people. This is one of the reasons why I feel so strongly about the African American culture, why it is so dear to my heart, the resistances. I learned recently about Father Divine, and I recommend for everyone to learn about the work of this man. This man was the founder of the peace mission movement from the early 1920s to the 50s and the 70s. Did some fantastic work, including forcing the Navy of the United States to integrate and offering them a building if they would integrate the Navy. I mean, some of the greatest work that he did for equality, integration, and even women movement and anti-lynching protest and so on and so forth. So there have been so many like that in the United States that have done tremendous work that commands respect. For instance, the reason we don't know about Father Divine was because of his approach towards resolving this issue, because he proclaimed, obviously he was addressing this social issue or this social challenge with his faith, his religious belief, and in his belief he's a Christianity based, and he proclaimed to be God. For whatever that means, that was, of course, one of the challenges of why perhaps we have not learned, or we weren't able to learn much about him, because he was dismissed for that.
Well, quick interjection, Dr. Wiley, but that's because a lot of those people didn't read the Bible, because I think the Psalms said ye are gods. In the book of Psalms, it said ye are gods. So a lot of the people who profess to be Christians don't read the Bible.
Absolutely. I am, look, religion is a belief, and we have to understand our belief and perfect it. So it is a belief because it is a belief, and it doesn't have to be right or wrong. It is a belief, and this is the right that is due to either the society or the individual. So again, look, Jesus was born, and so was Muhammad, and so was this person. And if you look at what he did in the time that he did it, it's actually very phenomenal. His work. Even Martin Luther King did not compare to this man, I dare say. You have to look at the work that he did, and so again. But anyway, the issue of peace is what perhaps we need to understand in order for us to really grapple with how to manage it, how to present it, how to work it. So it's really critical for us to have that understanding. And to me, the biggest challenge we have in the world is misunderstanding. Misperceptions is what I believe is our greatest challenge. And it's what caused us to react or act irrationally or wrongfully. And misunderstanding often come from misinformation. So I think that those things are still with us, and it is very, very important that we understand it. And it's very important that we include it in our gospel, as well as all our effort to reach out. Anyway, any questions for Professor Price, please, from the group?
I'll just ask for your email so I could send my list of questions.
All right.
I'll type it in the chat.
Give thanks, and really grateful that you were able to add a lighter side to coming out of what you experienced as a youth in Memphis.
Well,
Wally,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Wally, can I ask a question of you? After each of us presents or engages in our monologue, are we going to have the opportunity to exchange in a conversation where it's not just a question, because there's so much richness, so much texture, so much beauty going on in just the first two presenters, that I don't want to stop the flow with conversation, because everyone needs a chance. But at the same time, if my silence is not because I'm not only impacted or moved, but my silence is out of respect. It's out of the desire to hear from everyone before I exchange. But I do want to have an exchange, because the first two speakers have blessed me so much. You have no idea how my soul is being replenished just listening to your contributions, particularly at this moment in my life. It's just really appropriate and amazingly on time. They say, God is never late. He's always on time. He may not come, or she may not come when we want him, but never late, always on time. And this is one of those on time moments.
Thank you very much. And I think with that, it seems like somebody has another question.
Yes. I wanted to say some. I share similar sentiments with Christopher, because I really like how Dr. Shirenza and even Dr. Price really starting to knit in something quite interesting, which is around class issues, economics, right, into the peace conversation. Because the opening remarks by Dr. Shinzera, which I like, she says, peace is not peace, we don't understand peace in the same way, and we don't experience it in the same way. And immediately that triggers, geo dynamics in terms of where you're located. It triggers your class position in society. It triggers gender. It actually triggers race. And it just reminds me of, I've just said it, and I'm probably, but I'll expand more on this input later when I speak. I was in Tanzania last week, and we were talking about women in trade in Africa, because as a development economist, that's some of the work that I do. And I actually realized, and I was interacting with women from South Sudan, and I realized that in the conversation, in fact, we're not talking about trade, women in trade, or for women who are located in countries that experience political instability, right? So certainly it means that because there's no peace in their own countries, they're not likely to be undertaking any trade transaction in an easier way than I can do it in South Africa. But also, I suppose, even when you're located in the US, in the US, obviously, the systems are much more established, etc. And I mean, so the geodynamics are currently really quite important. But I just want to make the comments that I really like the knit that is emerging between Dr. Sinjera and Dr. Price input. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That is that observation is integral to the reason why we have a diverse group of people from different cultural backgrounds, as well as
Dr. Wiley, can I say something real quick?
Sure.
But also, I forgot to mention about the leadership. I mean, when I think about African American leadership, when I think about African leadership, that's who has really failed us. And when you think about how they line their own pockets, but they don't take care of their respective communities, and that's where the failure really, I think, because Malcolm got killed, Martin, the people who stood up for us, they were assassinated, and the other ones lined their pockets, and the ones who wouldn't line their pockets, they were murdered. And so I think we had to do a better job of getting leadership. We had to focus on quality leadership at all levels. I think that's another thing that perpetuates racism in our community, because those same people sort of work with the system to keep us in our conditions. And so until we get better leadership and cultivate better leadership, and that's another thing that we don't do, and I'm gonna stop there, is that we don't create sort of like succession plans. I mean, we have great leaders. When they die, who's the person that comes up behind them that embraced the community, that works for the community? They're gone. So we have to start all over, hope someone rises up. So that's another aspect, I think, where we fail, that contributes to why we are always sort of discriminated against as well, because we lack poor leadership in our respective communities.
If I may say,
yeah.
Sri Sathya Sai Baba says that it is the women, the mothers, who are responsible for grooming the leaders, because the ladies have a heart, okay, so, and they know the knowledge of what's righteous. So righteousness begins at home, and that's what the leadership comes from. That righteousness, that seed, must be planted by the mothers. And that's why it's so important to take care of the mothers and the families, because there's so many who suffer from broken families or poverty at a young age. And it's that inspiration of righteous mothers that evolves into a leader. That's, Sri Sathya Baba was always saying this. And he says that the leadership of India, the ones that really prospered and built up the country, were the ones whose mothers pushed them to the righteous side. That's very important to take care of the family.
Thank you, Dr. Gandhi. I want to add just a few words. Thank you for mentioning that, because I was very involved in the early childhood education, early years of the children at home, with the parents' education or teachers' education. You're right, the leadership seed were planted very early on. And you're talking about mother. Thank you for giving mother so much honor. But you know, mother is all about unconditional love.
Unconditional love.
Unconditional love.
Yes. And in Hinduism, the mother is equivalent to God. God. The representative of God on earth is the mother, not the father, but the mother. That's why it's very important that families be taken care of.
Right. Yeah. Thank you.
Wonderful. Any other question or comments? I mentioned earlier that there is a connection between desires and satisfaction. Somebody has a hand raised. Let me just quickly finish my thought, and I will address. Who was that? Was that you?
Hello.
Jim? Hello.
Hello. This is
Yes.
yeah. Hi, Dr. Walid. This is Pradeep from Nepal.
Hello, dear Pradeep.
Yeah.
Welcome.
I'm listening. Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah. Please go on. Yeah. I'm listening. Thank you.
Thank you. Very well. Thank you very much for joining us from Nepal, Pradeep.
Yeah. It's my
Wonderful
pleasure.
to see you. I will introduce Pradeep later. So the issue of that connection, however technical it sounds, is very meaningful. And some of the problems we have, which is why it is so important to build personalities, which is why mothers are critical in the process of our development. But I also think fathers, humanity in general, for the foundation of the family, is that many desires are not rooted in needs. Many things could sway a desire. So that's why some people have everything and they are dissatisfied and unpeaceful. We have to look at this. So it's very important that we understand the issue of peace as fundamental to everything that we do, every step that we make, because any little thing could derail it, and it could have the appearance of peace when it is not. So this is it's a very challenging thing for all of us, and I want us to really address it properly. I think with this comprehensivity, we may be able to really do some true value to the public. Dr. Price also mentioned something that is very, very critical. One second, sir. Dr. Price also mentioned something that is very critical. He said, you know, all the different groups have their fundamental bases. The Jews have a fundamental base. The Chinese, the Indians, everybody, every group. But I also want to say that so does the Africans. It's very important that we understand that. However, the African strength is dissipated, of course, by the virtue of its history and its experiences, right? We are people in the Caribbean, people in different parts of Africa, in America, Europe, and infiltrated with all kinds of schisms like religion, educational, all of those things have drifted the people apart in many ways. And we also have, we're not the only one with ethnic challenges, but we do have that. And some of that will be addressed later. So I want to, we even don't have enough fundamental, integral, universal language that could be used in that context. So there's a lot of challenges for this. So I know that many Africans pick themselves up and say, we speak for other Africans or this and that, and by doing so, I realize that we create even further wedges. So I would like us to discuss a little bit more about that later, because it's probably positive towards peace to look more on commonalities than what often fracture, enlarges the fractures that we already have. And there are so many fractures. But, when it comes to racism and discriminations, yes, we are first in line. That's one place, one area that we lead undoubtedly in the world, but we're not the only one. But however, we do have a large share. And I think because of that, it is extremely critical that we look at it from all perspectives, which is why I've invited the Honorable Juris Doctor, Mr. Christopher Campos, who has many heritages, including African, Latino, American. He's going to explain to you, and this is an international, multi-dimensional, multiracial brother of whom I am so proud, and his heart is purely human. So here is my brother, Mr. Christopher Campos. Please do introduce yourself.
Thank you, my brother Wale. I am really humbled to be on this call, and I'm grateful with my whole heart that I got the phone call from you yesterday. We hadn't touched base in a little while. I've been operating in my little world, and we haven't been able to connect. So last night really touched my soul, our conversation leading up to today and this conversation. Thank you to all who have contributed and will contribute to my life. So I'm grateful. I want to start off real quickly. Funny story, recently I got my DNA results back, and I have always considered myself, based on my proximity to my community, my family history, who raised me, an Afro-Latino. I've always been, in my family, we call ourselves Black Puerto Ricans, but if you talk to certain aunts of mine, we use more explicit language to describe who we are as Afro-Latinos as a result of experiencing the pain of being discriminated against, even within our own community, because for some we're not white enough, and for others we're too dark, if you know what I mean. And so when you come out of it with a consciousness, and I like to say the diaspora consciousness, knowing from which you come, then you're even further ostracized from the blonde-haired, blue-eyed cousins that you may have to look down on you. So my own history became a little clearer when I received my DNA results, and it broke down. Not only do I have my African ancestry, but Spain. But the weirdest thing that happened was the Portuguese bloodline that I had no idea, who I've been critiquing for years because of their imperialistic endeavors throughout the history of our world. So to find out I was 16% Portuguese blew my mind, because I've been struggling here in the Iron Bound with some of my brothers and sisters who are Portuguese on the history of imperialism and some of the struggles that where they see slavery from a different angle than I do, and what it produced in Latin America, particularly in Puerto Rico and the islands, Dominican Republic, etc. Anyway, so that surprised me, and I like to get back to the discussion of peace, because I believe peace, there are two levels, if you want to, the micro, the macro, and the micro. So we're talking about individual peace and peace as a society. So, Dr. King once wrote that true peace is not merely the absence of conflict, tension, or strife, but the presence of justice, right? So on a political, economic, macro level, we're talking that peace. But if I turn to the good book in Philippians 4:6, scripture tells us that in every situation, with prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, tell your request to God, and the peace that surpasses all understanding will guard your heart. And that peace that is mentioned in that scripture, I believe, is the peace that we were touching upon with every single speaker in terms of what we do, whether it's yoga, whether it's meditation, what it is to give us peace, because I have to tell you, in this world today, I'm finding it difficult with the rise in right-wing extremist politics, with attacks going across the board on the right for a woman to make her own choices in America, with extremism in Europe. I'm finding it challenging to have peace. And the only way I can get that peace is to come back to the personal peace, to understand that there's a peace that surpasses all understanding. Because in the midst of the storm, in the midst of the conflict and the battles that we daily engage in, and whatever work we're doing in whatever part of the world we're in, we need that peace. We need that peace because it's what attracts others who are in darkness. See, that light that we allow to emanate from our recesses of our soul. So we can't fill others unless we're filled. So the piece that we were engaged in the conversation, I don't want it to be lost, because I was struggling recently because I have some personal challenges in my own biological family. My daughter is ill. I've been in the hospital, as you know, Wale, 3 weeks. My daughter's having surgeries, and I couldn't find peace because I'm questioning God, I'm questioning religion, I'm questioning everything that gave me peace, because my innocent 7-year-old is going through a traumatic situation. And so, and please forgive me for going into this area, because my comments were aimed at something more global, but I'm grateful that I was touched by each and every one of you so far, and I know I will be touched a little bit spiritually by all of you, because as the African philosophy of Ubuntu, and I wrote that on the chat, you know, Ubuntu, Gamuntu, Gavantu. You know, I am because we are. I gain strength from you. I gain strength from each of you. And that's a different philosophy than Descartes and I think, therefore I am. The notion that I'm an individual and an island, and sometimes we get isolated and we start fighting these battles alone, and we want to, you know, shoulder the burden by ourselves, but we're not alone. And today reminded me of that. Seeing your beautiful smiles and and hearing your contributions to this International Day of Peace inspires me. It evokes what I believe our ancestors went through in the diaspora, or in every challenge in human history. As Brother Fanon said, that we rose from, we rose from the ashes. We were able to claim who we are as a people, even in the midst of numbers or challenges that would drive you crazy. Here in America, with laws that said my mother and my father couldn't get married because my father's Black, my mother's white. Here in America, where they said that, you know, you're not allowed to love a certain person, you're not allowed to be with because of the very status of who you are. We've overcome insurmountable odds, but it feels like history is starting to repeat itself. And so, to get back onto that macro level, we just watched as one of the major parties of the United States allow for a proven racist, a fascist, give a speech and get embraced by thunderous applause, as, you know, this fascist Orban addresses a major national party. So how do you have peace when you're looking at people who want to destroy the very institutions that gave us liberation, or that we fought to receive liberation in terms of our democratic process? And so I look around the world, and I try to find pockets of people who think like us, who embrace the we and not the I. So I do respect, Brother Price, when you were talking about the power of, you know, individual groups in terms of, you know, the Chinese, the Koreans, but what I've decided in my life, because of what I've seen in the Afro-Latino population, is that I have to find like-minded individuals. And that's why my soul is attracted to Brother Wale. My soul is attracted to the sisters and brothers on here, because I can't wait for Clarence Thomas to wake up. I can't wait for those that have the same uniform but don't fight in the same army. I can't wait for that, because they're destroying the very things that help you and me get to the point where we have a voice and we're recognized as human beings in this society. So I respectfully say that we need more of each other to find peace. We need to fly this banner of love. And I'm going to leave you with this last quote, one of my favorite quotes out of a book that I read while I was in South Africa. It's called My Traitor's Heart. And Reen Milan, who is a traitor to the apartheid system, quote unquote, because he rejected his parents, his ancestry, he wrote, "The path of love is not a path of comfort. It means going forward into the unknown with no guarantees of safety, even though we're afraid. Trusting is dangerous, but without trust, there is no room for love. And love is all we have to hold against the darkness." Ladies and gentlemen, I'm telling you that there's darkness out there, but if we continue to hold each other, if we continue to embrace each other in our humanity unconditionally, like our mothers have taught us, we can overcome that darkness. Thank you for allowing me to contribute. God bless you, Wale. Thank you, everyone.
Wow. Wow. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Chris. Thank you so very much. Wow. Yeah. This is, you said something that really touched me, and I have to highlight it, because it's, of course, it's very important that we look at our immediate need, our immediate concern, that family, that unit, ourselves. But it gets, that peace challenges us also to be selfless, to look beyond just our own confines. This is where it gets tricky, especially when we're talking about those creating silos, cultural silos, and insulating silos, and creating stronghold and cultural strength, which is important, which is important. However, there are those who look beyond that and have a place in humanity. And I think in that space is true peace, because it breeds hope unhindered. That's where freedom is, that we don't have that confinement. I mean, let me know when you get there, because it's so difficult. But it's a higher ground, and if you look at the principles of the great prophets and all the protagonists of peace across time, that's what they adhered to. So I love everything that you said, and how we have to reach out. That it doesn't have to be, that immediate, because when we do that, we insulate ourselves. We insulate ourselves, and we also become very suspicious. While it's important to have that, it's an insulated peace. It's a kind of peace, because it has this desire. So there is a purpose to peace. I think so far we established that. And this brings me to the very famous quote that Obama used to use for his campaign, which is the audacity of hope. And I realized that what he's actually saying is courage. Courage. It's interesting. I don't want to bring any political issue, but there are lots of things, because I realize, again, our perception limits us tremendously. I know that Gandhi, when we talk about peace, everybody, it's hard to refute Gandhi. Yet there are groups of people who are very influential, who are making movements against Gandhi. It's not just in India or it's everywhere that there is a movement against Gandhi, and they're very impactful, that believe that Gandhi was racist, that they believe that he was. And I've taken painstaking effort to understand the issue, and I found Gandhi to be peaceful, intentionally peaceful, sacrificially peaceful until his end. And it was a very sad conclusion, because the person who took his life believed that Gandhi was not bringing him peace. Isn't that interesting? You know, that is so interesting in the world that we are. And I see a rising scholars of a number of scholars in Africa who are also rallying on the fact that, oh, Gandhi was racist, or he fought against the Africans. You know, he said Africans with this and that. We'll talk about that later. And I'd like Dr. Gandhi Kota to speak on that. I know he's very eloquent on issues like this. But I think this would help the public to have a better understanding of this. I have read about it, and I will share some thoughts about it as well. But right now, I want us to look at some other intricacies of challenges in societies. And I would call on Chief Anita Nana Okuribido, who is the Sustainable Energy Entrepreneur in Nigeria and our president of the African Views Nigeria. Congratulations on launching the African Views Nigeria. This has been a long time coming. We're so excited and very grateful to all your leadership. I hope that you're ready to make a presentation. And I think this is a really good time to look further into this issue of challenges of peace in the society. Dr. Anita.
Thank you, Dr. Wale, and good evening from Nigeria to everyone out there. I've listened to the erudite speakers. Oh my word, this is an international standard. And I hope what I will say, because I'm going to say it in all simplicity about peace, that it will measure up to the international standard that my predecessors who have spoken have presented. I really love my heart for everyone. Thank you so much for gracing this webinar. But let me quickly give us a little song that would kind of encapsulate what peace is all about. So it goes this way. Lord, we pray for golden peace, peace all over the land, where all men dwell in liberty, walking hand in hand. Banish fear and ignorance, hunger, thirst, and pain. Banish hate and poverty. Let no one live in vain. Let no one live in vain. Keep us all forever one, one in love and peace. Wipe away all war and strife. Give freedom to each race. Let your justice reign supreme and righteousness be done. Let goodness rule the hearts of all. Let evil be overcome. So it goes again, let us banish fear and ignorance. So my topic today would really dwell on ignorance, because it's like ignorance drives us all and we all get into fear. And that is where the lack of peace comes in. but today is September 21st, and it is International Day of Peace. Peace begins with each and every one of us. And if we do not imbibe and own it, then we cannot radiate it. As it stands, that we cannot give what we do not have. We must have peace to be able to give it out to others. Peace translates to mental health for all of us. There is so much insecurity, strife, wars, and ethnic divisions that do not augur well for us and the generations that will succeed us all. Are we bringing peace to our homes, our places of work, our businesses, communities, and even the nation at large? Let us rethink. Let us all redefine. Let us strategize the way we predispose our worlds, our thought processes to peace, harmony, unity, and progress. Let me put it to us and reiterate that we all owe humanity a duty of peace to reign supreme around us, a duty to achieve global peace by helping the mental disposition of all around us to attain peace. What are we individually or collectively doing to improve the mental health around us by bringing peace to our world? Peace is a collective impact effort. Let me jostle our memories a bit as I also do another song, but this time the Nigerian national anthem. Arise, O compatriots, Nigeria's call obey, to serve our fatherland with love and strength and faith. The labor of our heroes past shall never be in vain. To serve with heart and might, one nation bound in freedom, peace, and unity. See how all these words are connected. Freedom, peace that will bring unity. We must learn to reject toxic information which propagate hatred, ethnic diversity, sectionalism, or seek to manipulate our religious differences in such cynical fashion. On our own part, let us remain undeterred to propagate peace always. We have to be selfless about this. Our commitment must always be focused towards bringing about peaceful changes in the way we live, think, and work in our various communities in the nation. Our common goal is to ensure a decent coexistence for all. And by the grace of God, that is what we should do. We should remain true to our commitment and achieve our goal as we pledge to our country, Nigeria. I'm keeping it to Nigeria because, of course, it transcends to all other countries in Africa and probably the whole world, so that we'll be faithful, loyal, and honest to serve Nigeria with all our strength, to defend her unity and uphold her honor, peace, and glory. So help us, God. Let us embrace the golden peace as we celebrate another International Day of Peace. I really would like to thank Dr. Wale for putting this wonderful webinar for us to really hear our view about radiating peace to one another. He put it together in such a short time, and I'm happy that all the eggheads are here to discuss peace, and I'm privileged to be one of you. Thank you so much.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so very, very much. Thank you. You found a really creative way to express the challenges that you face in the country, Nigeria. The Nigerian nation has about 240 ethnic groups within the nation. They're very distinctive ethnic groups. And the country itself is challenged, I would like to use the word challenged, in working in harmonizing the 250 groups. You can imagine 250 groups with distinct mindset, culture, interest, and desires. Okay, so it's a serious challenge. And on top of that, you have a layer of religion. And then on top of that, you have a layer of political affiliation, or political interest, or social interest, and all other challenges and issues. So it's extremely difficult to manage the situation in Nigeria, which is why that national anthem is so powerful, because it provides a sense of direction. But again, it's one thing to propose something, it's another thing to actually feel it, which brings us to the issue of peace in the nation. So one of the most important things right now in the country is ensuring peace and security for the people. There have been many reports about insecurity. There is a lot of agitations for secession. So many of these groups trying to get out of the union of the nation. And the country has experienced civil war before. I mean, if you imagine the same concept in the United States, where we have 50 states, and each of these states really are some form of ethnic groups. We don't look at it that way because we all speak English, but we do have dialects here in the United States. So they say you have an accent. Dialect is an accent, right? So you could have a New York accent. You could, but imagine the extent of that difference when it's so prominent, so when it's so fundamental, you know, with other cultural affiliations and cultural makeups, with such differences that are beginning to conflict. But you know, thank God in the United States, the political system is so strong, especially the federal system, so strong that is overarching, and it's ensuring a constitution that works for everybody, which provides a guarantee for right of life and so many other things. Of course, we have states officials still violating all these human rights and all these constitutional rights, but at least it is acknowledged, and it could, you know, it serves as an instrument that works the country. That do exist in Nigeria, as in many other African states, but it's hard to enforce, even much harder to enforce than in the United States. And therefore, a lot of people take advantage of it. So impunity becomes, you know, the culture, and there's a lot of political challenges, corruptions, and stuff like that. But there is a great opportunity, which really brings us to the opportunity in chaos, if you could imagine that in spite of all these challenges, a twist of sobriety actually could not just make it better, but be the solution of the conflict itself. So, so essentially, the problem is actually the solution. It's just inverted. How could diversity be a wealth if it's a problem? You see? So we have all these diversities. We just need to manage it properly. If
Well,
we're
the
able to-
the
Yeah, go ahead.
contrapositive of that is how can diversity be a problem if it's your wealth? Right? The
Yeah.
contrapositive of what you just said, it's like when I was in South Africa and they were promoting the Semunye, we are one, every morning, a type of nationalism in terms of building a South African culture that's inclusive, not exclusive. The diversity doesn't have to divide. You don't have to see me as your enemy, but as your compatriot. And I agree with you that the solution kind of is part and parcel the other side of the coin, if you will.
Exactly. It's embedded. It's on board. You know, it's just need to be inverted. And of course, it takes a lot of programmatics that they have to show the society how integral the diversity is, how just the system is to the various levels of classes, you know, in the population. They have to, the government need to ensure the not only understanding, but also the, there's a word for that. The government needs to ensure that the populace feel that they have been looked after, that there's a place to go to, that there is hope for them, that the door is not shut. When a population feel like there is nowhere they can go, there is chaos. They are unhappy. The individual is unhappy. The individual is not at peace, and so is the population. So we have this issue, which is not easy, because then we look at the issue of the American Civil War, where you have the Southerners believing in certain way of life and the Northerners and another. But then this is where peace becomes encompassing. It's not just about you. It's just not about you. It's about the us. So before we can even begin to talk about peace, there's got to be a well-established us on the table.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, sir. So any question for Chief Anita? You brought up a very, very important point, my lady. So any other comments to add to it before we move to the next speaker? All right. If you know, we can always come back to a topic. So I want us to really exhaust it and make sense of it. So, you know, when we are talking about these intracultural challenges, we know that there are just as many ethnic groups in India, but as well in China. A lot of people do not know the challenges that the Chinese people face, as well as in the United States. You remember when COVID broke out, we had a serious attack on so many Asian people. Even though the confused American populace wanted to attack China, they were just attacking all kinds of Asian people that they perceived to be Chinese. They were hurting a lot of people. It was very embarrassing. And we had so many cases. It was embarrassing. And yet, you know, these things exist. So I've asked our friend, Jean Zhao Cesarano to join us. She has spoken a few times before. She is the founder of Global CSR Foundation, Corporate Social Responsibility. She's also the founder of Childwise International, which cares for development of children, but also corporate responsibility for, again, this type of activities to ensure that corporate support social interest. She's a wonderful friend, and she's an American, but she has Chinese heritage, and she's one of the people that I know works from her heart to ensure that there is a better understanding between China and the United States. And I support this view of hers, and hopefully we can resolve all these political and economic challenges between the two countries. But it is important to hear our voice today. And without further ado, I invite her to take the podium. Jin, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Wally, for inviting me. I'm very happy to receive your message last night. Even though last minute, actually, I was very happy to be able to join this event. It has been a couple of years, right? Haven't been very active in this platform. So very happy to join, and very honored, humbled to be here. And also, you know, I want to share about actually the International Day of Peace. 3 years ago, if you still remember, 3 years ago, this very day, we have a group of Chinese entrepreneurs and business leaders coming to the UN for the climate change conference. And on this very day, we had a celebration at that Chinese restaurant right outside the UN, and we take group pictures to celebrate the International Day of Peace. That was exactly 3 years ago today. And I was happy to be also actually involved this year, even in the summer, about planning about International Day of Peace at the Times Square. Like today, they have all the event at the Times Square, also in Boston, in different cities. I was invited by the Good News Corporation. I know if anybody know Paul from that organization, and he is using his media platform to engage global participation on the International Day of Peace, including not just speakers, but also children art projects, or saying the peace. And there is a peace time around noon today at the Times Square and globally as well. And we were able to engage some of the children in China to be, to have awareness and do something special on especially artworks on this International Day of Peace. So I'm very happy last night, Dr. Wally reached out to me about, have a chance to speak at this event. But to my, pleasant surprise at this time now, I feel, and from the first, speaker, Dr. Gandhi, to have all that words about start day with love, end the day with love, all about peace, every speaker's, my heart is totally, full of joyful peace. That's what I see it. I was gonna say joy and peace, but I feel it's a joyful peace, because I will read a poem later about a master writer in China. He wrote a very long poem about the call for peace, and I translate that into English. I will only take a small part of it to read it at the very end. But what I want to see is peace is so hard to have, yet so precious to treasure. And today I feel joyful peace because we have all these like-minded people. Everyone have so much passion and love and dedication to build a better world, a more peaceful world. That already just resonate and connect with me already like instantly and deeply. So I'm very, that's what I wanted to say. I already feel like overwhelmingly peaceful and joy to be with everyone here today. I do want to share like a little bit of my background to talking about the racist and also the COVID. Dr. Wali said a little bit. That's quite a extraordinary experience for me as well. So I came to the US in the 90s as a master's degree student in communication. And I later, before I came here, I was a reporter for China Daily as a business reporter, reporting multinational companies, corporate social responsibility in China. That's already started my passion in that area. So I came here in the US year 2000. I was married to my husband, who was an Italian American. When I came to the US, I had this belief and also the true experience about US is where the equality, diversity, freedom, independence, all of that existed. And I did experience all of that. Like you hardworking, you do your best, you be kind to everyone. At that time, I did feel like, that's how I embraced, and I try to collaborate everything. So I was, for many years as a Chinese, many times when I talk in my community with Chinese American or some Asian American executive club, or I'm very active in our own community as well. I'm always the one telling people that I did not really feel much racist. I feel like I did not feel much at least from my experience, professional and personal. So everything changed during the COVID. It's like the whole world is like upside down. I mean, before it's not like it didn't exist. It did, but not in a very dramatic or very, very, very dramatic way. But during the COVID, that's, a lot of things changed. And it's become like, for the Chinese community, when we came across, people think the virus came from China, the Chinese virus. And also there incidents happened in major cities on the street in San Francisco, in New York. Chinese old ladies were attacked, spat on, Chinese people become the center of like, this is because of you brought this virus, all of that. All of a sudden, I began to feel like I did not want to go out as much. Even my kids at school have some kind of, information on this, make them feel uncomfortable, and they didn't want even to tell me, but I can feel that. So I think during the COVID, all of this happened in quite an unexpected and dramatic way, make our Chinese community and also Asian community realize it's become something like, hate crime, or all of that. So Dr. Wiley just now said, I remember you just said that, every crisis is an opportunity. Throughout the COVID, that's the time our Chinese community, I felt, begin to unite together and begin to have a voice. Chinese people in the US are known as to be hardworking. They don't really do a lot of, they do some community activities, events, all of that, but not like a protest or just doing, that kind of, they're not that type of character, but during the COVID, that's when all the cities of the Chinese community united and had a voice to stand up, to protect, our, to protect even our safety, and our, to go against this racism publicly, to find peace for ourselves. So that's quite an important experience, that to change my mentality to, we think the world is a peaceful world, but when we came across major challenges, like a COVID, all of this, then things can get really bad. So we still need to continue to work towards education, communication, reach good understanding, to build a better world. So by seeing all of that, I want to, share a little bit about what I do. And also I remember our previous speakers mentioned about peace in the world and about the inner peace. And also Dr. Wiley mentioned about US-China. So when I first came to the US in the 90s, I did have a dream is to bridging US and China, building cultural understanding, and I have been dedicated to that. I've been doing that in business, cultural exchange, and education over the last 20 plus years, working with hundreds of multinational companies on their corporate social responsibility, and also on non-for-profit government agencies for the last 20-some years. Last 5 years is when I, in the process of finding peace and finding a focused area to work on so I can feel I am making a difference. That is early childhood education. From my experience of being a mom of 3 daughters and being, raised my kids in American culture and education system, but I was raised in China for most of my, before I was like mid-20s. So to combine all that education together, I realized I can really stay focused in building, help China building its early childhood education system, training, curriculum, all of that. And my background and knowledge, expertise can help localize that to adopt to the Chinese culture and the Chinese system. So that's what I've been focusing on for the last few years, more exclusively. And by seeing that, I want to share a quote, but that did give me a lot of joy and find my inner peace. And I want to share a quote from our Chinese ancient saga, Confucius. Everybody knows Confucius. I read this recently, actually. He has many quotes I know pretty well, but this is a quote I found recently, completely speaks to my heart, is education breeds confidence. Confidence breeds hope. And hope breeds peace. And I did find my inner peace, and I did have the faith to believe in what I do can eventually to improve the children's education in China by helping mothers, helping teachers, help government in its policy. All of that I do, gave me very much satisfaction and a peace inside in me. So that's kind of, my story. To end my talk today, I would like to share Chinese master. I talked to him this morning, said that I would like to read part of his poem about a call for world peace. I did that with the interview with that TV network on International Day of Peace as well. But I read a small part of this just to share with everyone. Yeah. A Call for World Peace by Master Hong Tai. Peace is a magnificent word, but also tiny. Peace is a state of both near and far. People who live in peace cannot feel its weight, but those who lost peace see it as an unreachable dream. If I can, I hope that no one in the world have to bear the heaviness of lost peace. If I can, I hope peace is like a body of a healthy human being, building the spirit of everyone in the world and nourishing their longing soul. Peace should not be the magic wand of conspirators. Peace should not be left in the dream of war. Peace should be cherished by everyone. Peace should become a pursuit and a belief in our human self-salvation. Our chaotic world needs peace. Peace is a neutral and a great voice. She represents the interests of all. She embraces all beliefs and carries them all. She will be transformed into a variety of voices, and these voices will eventually be attributed to peace. Because peace is the love of the source. Peace is the spring of life and a sweet dream. Peace is our bright, shining sun. Peace will be turned into faith, filling every dark and damp corner. To save the past and avoid future crises, we call for a lasting peace for generations. We will chase the peace endlessly. If peace does not return to its place someday, this is the day for all of us to continue our fight for peace. Thank you.
Thank you. Fisher.
Yeah, very good. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Jean.
Yes.
Thank you. That was so wonderful. You know, I reflected a lot as you were speaking, and I realized that peace is scalable. And of course, you're right with the adjectives. There are different kinds of peace because they have to be purposeful. And I realized that they have to be achieved bit by bit and then systematized so that we can maintain them. So that it becomes a culture. Gosh, it's a serious work to be able to achieve that. Because you have to, like, peace of the self, peace of the family, of the community, the state, and so on and so forth, right? And then peace of the international realm. Which is why the United Nations remain even so important to us. But oftentimes we have all these conflicts that come from international influences and challenges. Like some of the most delicate, peace in itself is delicate, and some of the impediments to peace is a kind of feeling that I cultivated from habit, that I want to call cultivated dependencies. They are envy, jealousy, you know, because there's this social media meme that's been going on for a long time. Some of us may have came across it. It's a very interesting one when you see this person talking about how somebody could just hate you for the purpose of just for the sake of it, for no reason at all. So you're looking at someone who's eating chicken and you're like, why the heck is this person eating chicken? And you express all kinds of nasty words and to describe the situation. The idea is that when we perceive activities as competition, it is very likely that if the outcome is not favorable to us, we will have a reaction. And if that reaction is not grounded in integrity,
Or love.
or love, oh yes, of course. I mean, love is like up there.
Yeah.
Love for the sake of humanity, love for humanity. You know, a lot of us say, oh, we love this and we do this, my people, your people. But if we have love for humanity, we'll have a better understanding of our position in humanity and how we are to conduct ourselves. So to me, I see a lot of envy around the ascendancy of China or Chinese people in the world. And some of it, I think, perhaps most of it is unfair, but I also see a lot of reaction. So I know that there's a lot of work to be done, and our work is cut out for us. Part of what we're doing now is to exchange so freely amongst ourselves that we can understand what our challenges are and what our potentials are, and be able to balance this in such an harmonious and amicable way. So I I think that there's so much beauty in the world. And I think a culture like Chinese culture, like most other culture, brings such beauty into the world. And it's important for us to be able to see things that way. So I think I wrote earlier before, and I just want to mention it, that it means that we have to see, for instance, when we talk about hegemonies and colonial colonizations of the world and so on and so forth, we realize that there's been some form of cultural hegemony that intended to homogenize world perceptions. This was the biggest wrong for humanity. We know that now, and it's important that we correct this. You know, recently the Queen of England passed away, and there's all this sentiment around the world. Many Africans reject to celebrate that because they thought, why should we? She was a
Symbol.
Yeah, she was
Heroism of
a symbol of
colonialization.
colonialism. Exactly. Thank you. She was a symbol of all of those oppressions that they have experienced, and perhaps they argue that you know, our existence and our power remains a hurdle for the development of many nations in the world. And you can't blame them for feeling that way because that's the experience, you see. But some people are like, oh, you know, that's our queen, blah, blah, blah. You know, again, all of these challenges are out there. And whether we like it or not, there will be conflicts of perceptions, of interest. But that does not make peace impossible, because that's where we have to agree that you're entitled to your opinion, just as you're entitled to your religion, and I'm entitled to hold my grudges or whatever it is that I want to do. You could have rice, I can have potato, you know, it's all starches. I think we need to get to that point in the world, and we need to be able to establish it as a way of life for all people. And we must be able to incorporate all cultures. You know, just like we have yoga now in our system. A lot of people do yoga as if, you know, you could get it from the supermarket. That's a culture of India. You know, this is something that was taken very, very seriously, you know, ancient practices and ceremonies around it, you know.
Yeah. Our sister shared something I want to go back to because I think it's the essence of this notion of peace, where she quoted, education breeds confidence, confidence breeds hope, and hope breeds peace. And why that point is so salient and so important to me is that, you know, in scripture it says, and the little one shall lead. If we educate our children not to function from a position of scarcity, but of abundance. And abundance doesn't mean economic abundance. Abundance meaning love, meaning unconditional, complete, wholehearted love, where I grew up on welfare with a mother who was bipolar schizophrenic. She was not available to me. So I didn't come from that. But I know the negative impact that had on me and the decisions I made before I went to law school. What was important is when I got out to Ohio and Africa and Europe, studied and met people who loved me unconditionally and showed me that despite what I was feeling internally, my deficit, that I was worthy. And if we impart that on our children, if we allow each and every one of us, our children, to see that, then they can't be manipulated by the talented demagogues that come along and they use them to fight and murder and assassinate each other culturally, economically, spiritually, financially, because that's what's going on right now. You got these demagogues who have said it was the China virus and used those dog whistles to destroy communities and destroy relationships, because together we see what's going on, and when we're working together, we can offset those evil spirits. But I love what you said about education, because it breeds that confidence. It breeds that notion that I am worthy by the very, and then I'm not insecure because you believe in saying it tomato and I say tomato. You
Yes.
eat potato, I eat rice. I don't have to let that divide us,
Right.
or destroy us.
Mhm.
I can still embrace your humanity, because your soul is connected to my soul, which is connected to the ultimate energy in the universe. So thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah, exactly. I just want to add, especially for children 0 to 3, so much research shows it's companionship of the mother and a stable caretaker to make the child feel, infant, toddler, feel secured, loved. That's more important than any education. So I did that for my 3 kids. And that's why I felt tremendously, beneficial. That's why I started many, 10 years ago about to try to do share with other parents, then go beyond to the US, to China, to hope, all the children in their very early age, they feel secured, feel loved,
Love,
abundant love.
yes, love.
That's their lifetime. That will change their lifetime. And the parents' job will be much easier if they are raised right before school years. Then their school, everything, their lifetime will be much more, stable and successful, and
Amen.
going to be responsible human being, adults. That's why I devoted almost entire my everything to early childhood education.
Amen. Amen. I have 3 daughters myself, so I
Oh,
understand.
all right.
God has a funny sense of humor.
Yeah.
He
yeah.
gave me 3
Wonderful. How
girls.
blessed. Oh, blessed. That's
I
very,
am.
very blessed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Me too. I learned so much from them. They defined my career path basically right now.
Conscientious Parent. That book has changed my life.
Changed my life. Yes.
Awesome. So this is again some of the, first of all, thank you, Chris. It's so beautiful that you highlight that aspect. But then we have to also be fair and not easily be swayed by this good intentionality of what ought to be and how it ought to be. Because for many people, there have been so much challenges that did not allow them to even think straight of how running a family. They don't even know how to run a family. They don't even know how to love or be loved because of their experiences. And therefore, they cannot pass it on to the children. We have this problem.
Yeah.
We have this problem in many communities in the world, not just in America. These are the type of virtue that needed to be in the educational pedagogic systems. Okay. Our system must be flexible to incorporate these things. But a lot of people, as you know, again, who have power, could influence the education pedagogy system to perpetrate private interest that only favors a certain group or certain kind, and so on and so forth, of people. So as we progress with this, we must not overlook the challenges that are serious, especially when we are talking in the context of racism. So as we are building peace, building the bad block, we also have to recognize the challenges of racism and be able to build peace in such a way that it resolves those problems. And we have to be fair to everybody, even those who are racist. We can't just say because they're racist, they're condemned, because they are conditioned. And therefore, they are
Manipulated.
too. There are problems too that needs to be
Manipulated.
resolved. Exactly, manipulated. This is why the talk of right information as placed by Chief Anita Oprovido was so important. Now, I'd like us to go home back to South Africa where a
Yeah,
very interesting, exactly, where we have some of the most recent challenges of racism as well as peace. Um, we know the Truth and Reconciliation started with Mandela there. We know what Mandela achieved. We know the challenges Mandela faced. We know those, Mandela became one of the most popular persons in the world.
After he was vilified and by the West, after he was demonized by the West, when they couldn't contain him anymore, then they co-opted the image. And sorry, but I spent enough time.
You're right. You're right.
I've
That makes
spent
sense.
enough time here to see. First of all, he's personally one of my heroes, someone who I hold to the highest esteem, not simply for his successes, but also the challenges that he faced and how he addressed those challenges, how he evolved against those challenges, personally and politically. What an amazing human being. But as you're saying, go ahead, sister. I want to hear from you.
Yes, indeed. And because of that, I think that South Africa is equally rich in these experiences and has enough to share with the world, enough knowledge rooted in these experiences to share with the world what the challenges of racism are and what the importance of peace are. So it is a great pleasure to bring our sister to the podium, Dr. Felicia Nkomo is an economist, and she likes to call it distributive justice. I love it, and she'll be able to explain that. That in itself tells you a lot of everything. She's just an amazing person. We're so lucky to have her with us today, and she joins us from South Africa. Please,
Thank
Dr.
you so
Felicia.
much. Yeah, thank you so much, Gerard. I'm not a doctor yet, but of course I'll accept it for tonight if you bestow that.
Speak it into the universe. Speak it into the universe.
Of course I accept it. I accept
Unjani.
it. Doctor. Yeah. You put Unjani, Christopher.
Oh, that the way to want me. See.
Yeah, you let a little bit. Professor Brian Price is here. I don't think he can even make some of the sentences. It just still makes one or two words. But anyway.
Don't be talking about me. You're supposed to be talking about racism and stuff. Don't be talking about me.
Because I know it's load shedding. So I thought you had left the room. Sorry. Anyway, so I just want to say that it's bedtime. So you're really going to forgive me if there's a lack of coherence in my thoughts. I'm feeling a little bit sleepy. But anyway, I mean, thank you so much, Dr. Wale, for convening this conversation. I think it's such a useful conversation, but also I really like the input of almost all the speakers, really, because it's quite personal. And I do think that it's true, we're never going to be able to achieve peace in the world if we don't interrogate some of our personal values and spiritual values, and as well as thought process and how we make decisions on a daily basis. And it's quite interesting that the United Nations has actually been chosen the theme of end racism, because I think there's a deep recognition, by the way, that actually at the heart of the world achieving peace is actually racial discrimination. It's ethnic discrimination, but it's all other things that we've learned about each other, which have been taught to us about others. It's the unconscious and conscious bias against each other, right? I think we do experience a lot of that in Africa. We experience that a lot in the global economy. And let me just even speak about even how sometimes we even forget about, and I think the point I was making earlier regarding the Women in Trade conference I attended in Tanzania, where we completely forgot about women who come from conflict situations. South Sudan, for example, Democratic Republic of Congo, northern parts of Nigeria, where women are not even able to trade because they might be attacked by Boko Haram, right? Women in South Africa who are exposed to crime on a daily basis. In fact, today, I was just walking out of a bank, and something just came through my spirit that what really makes me so unhappy, and I actually realized that crime scares me. It scares me, the fact that when I have to walk in the street, I actually have to watch my bag and be worried that either I could be robbed or I could actually experience gender-based violence, because that's a massive issue. And I suppose for non-South Africans who are in South Africa, they're even scared that because I'm a Zimbabwean or Mozambican, I may not be able to live peacefully in South Africa, because all the time, I'm being picked on based on my nationality, identity, and the fact that I'm not able to integrate and speak local languages. And I think on this day, we also need to ask the question as well, why are we not able to share the unconditional love that we come with from our own mothers? Because all of us have a history of being raised by a mother, by a grandmother, by an aunt, right? But also, we also need to interrogate, because I don't think we can entirely divorce, the history of colonialism and how it entrenched violence in families, in society. So in essence, we actually built on, on societies that have a lot of an entrenched violence, in that we even struggle to even turn into what I call alternative dispute mechanism in resolving misunderstanding, right? So if the child does something, you have to give hiding, right? There's no conversation. And also how the fact that particularly as adults, we're not able to. And I think Jing is coming from the early childhood development, can actually identify with this, how parents pass on their own trauma to children. And they don't demonstrate a lot of emotional intelligence in how they deal with issues. Now, this is just individuals. And I like the point that Christopher was making earlier around the delineation between macro and micro, because the micro tend to influence what we get to see at a macro level from a peace building perspective. So we have generations that are passing on violence and trauma to families. But also, the other question we must ask is, what type of system that governs humanity, which leads into this space where we don't feel, not peaceful. I don't think that we can actually not shine a spotlight on the issue of our global economy, for example, and how it's structured and how it promotes individualism, for example, and in essence, and that where people have to really scramble for them to survive. So for instance, how do you expect communities who suffer from food insecurity, right, to experience poverty and hunger on a daily basis, to actually experience peace? I think the point that Dr. Shinerza and says, peace means, peace is different to different people. So if I have shelter, I have something to eat, and I have my electricity, my power has just came back now, I'm kind of like, I'm less anxious than I was 2 hours ago when I joined the webinar. So it means that I'm in a peace. But there's someone who actually says, power is back, there's roof over my head, but I don't have food, to feed my family. So that's one. But I also think that there are systems we also really need to start quite interrogating, which is they're linked to capitalist system, how they've actually imposed what Dr. Wali were talking about as a cultural hegemony, right? Which actually undermines micro-cultural identities. So all of a sudden, all of us are kind of like, look alike, our cultural practices are the same. So if I come into your house, it kind of like, it's quite similar to my own house, right? Even though we don't speak the same language, culturally, we're not coming from the same background, etc. Even though I'll be coming to your house, looking forward to some different practices, in your system. But in fact, there's so much hegemony. And part of it is the issue around, language and how language undermines and in this context, the colonial language and how it undermines the very cultural system, which in fact are possible to be actually promoting peace. And the point I make, for example, I know in my culture, which is the Xhosa culture, that's what Ubuntu, the concept of Ubuntu comes from, Nguni culture as well, is that we used to have what we call alternative dispute mechanisms. Whenever there's a misunderstanding, actually people would sit down and there'll be elders who mediate over that specific crisis. But we hardly say that. In fact, quite interesting, by the way, also, just to say that South Africa, September month is Heritage Month. And it's actually a month that we should really be kind of like, triggering, our own identity, where we're really going to, kind of like call for going back to who we were and not what we are now. But we hardly, even continue think about it. Instead, we've actually embraced, human values that promote a lot of individualism. And naturally, when individuals are threatened, amongst the key things they do is that they always fight back and make sure that they protect what they believe is their territory. So we've undermined the concept of communities, because the concept of communities means that we must always look after each other's well-being. And that well-being, one is both spiritual well-being, it's cultural well-being, but also it's also material well-being, with some form of sharing of the basics, right? And so, and in essence, within your community type of a concept, so there was always, people were always able to center themselves, but they will always have a chance to ventilate when there's certain things that actually bothers them. And I think obviously as a feminist, I can't not talk about, I think it would be unjust if I don't talk about. The issues around social construction, that are embedded in masculinity as well, right? And I think that it's a completely new entry point I want to introduce in tonight's conversation, is that, amongst those, the masculinities, that it's so embedded in toxic competition, and toxic competition, leads into situations that it's not peaceful. So there are three, for example, principles unto which masculinity is raised. It's raised into you provide, you protect, you lead. When you're not able to, to actually exercise all these three key principles, actually it leads into a space where you're not going to be able to be peaceful, because the provision is linked to the material provision, and meaning that you must be able to earn an income and protect your family. And if you're not able to do that, that brings peace, because it actually brings a situation where it's not peaceful. So in essence, as an individual, you walk around feeling, a sense of instability instead of a sense of peace. There's a protection, exactly, and as well as there's leadership. And obviously, in the context where women are starting to even be, enter labor market and earn an income, so where they have a voice. So there's always a contestation, and in essence, that social construction would have not prepared either groups to be able to, to live peacefully, because when those three principles unto which masculinity is built on, they're not able to be met. So in essence, there's always instability. In fact, we're starting to see there's a lot of, it's not even anecdotal evidence from a scientific perspective that is coming up strongly, that part of what we see as part of gender-based violence is actually the fact that from a social construction perspective, masculinity is not able to fulfill some of what they are taught and being raised to do it, and so actually become violent in society. Now, I'm not saying that for any other reason women are not violent, but I do think that just my last part in short is really around the role of leadership in peace building. I think that's really, really important, and Dr. Price actually raised it. And I do think that, people who ascend into position of power often don't think about their role as actually contributing to peace. So if, for instance, they need to provide water, they need to provide housing, they need to provide jobs to citizens, that at the heart of it, it's about delivering, not only social stability, but also the feeling of well-being and inner security to individuals. Because, and I think, it's important, and I'm not discounting the issue of spirituality, but I think you need spirituality, and in addition to that, you do need some form of well-being so that you actually feel a sense of completeness. And in essence, in the absence of that, leadership in society, we do experience a lot of instability. And now we do see, for example, I think in Africa and even African American communities, churches playing such a critical role in terms of spirituality to hold, individuals, and communities together, that they remain in a space of hope spiritually. We also know that how much of churches as well have abused that social power. There's that spiritual and social power that they enjoy over communities in the form of, for instance, in South Africa, with instances where pastors are raping young girls, for instance, with, people who've been flouting the rules, and also, squandering, resources and corruption. But I mean, we do think that they still, even though churches still, or religious institution, we put that way, I mean, remains critical institution to even, contribute both, not only in spiritual growth of individuals and what they believe in, but also in the same time to play a critical role in knitting communities together so that you actually, individuals, enjoy much more peace over and above your material resources. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much. You said so many things that really plague us all around the world, and having a concrete way of looking at it in our mundane systems. Wow. Thank you very, very much. There are all kinds of things that contribute to peace. You're right. And if we have people or a system that is built on disregard of equity in the populace, we have a big problem. And I think it becomes a challenge, as in when somebody occupies a public office, they often take with them their cultural values, right? Which we hope that it is good, but in some cases, perhaps in many cases, perhaps even in too many cases, some of these values collides with the interest of the public. Let's put it that way. And that's an issue. So I think in conclusion, I would recommend that we all conclude with what type of recommendation we would provide for a more peaceful society. We've been able to address some of these challenges, but we're very fortunate that we have Dr. Chenzira with us today, because she is of the Caribbean, and the Caribbean is equally as important as the African American culture, because it represents quite a chunk of the African diaspora, and she is a tremendous resource in the African community, especially in the realm of scholars and the academia, as well as in the spiritual importance, if you will, of the African people in general. So we're very lucky that she's here with us, and I would like us to take the opportunity to hear from her. We would also hear from Pradeep, if he's still with us, to talk a little bit more about the situation in Nepal. But first, let's hear from Dr. Chen. We're so happy and proud that you're here with us. Thank you so much.
And I'm really honored beyond words to be present with such an esteemed gathering of brilliant, regal, spiritually centered, powerful beyond measure, blessed and anointed people that are willing to even have a conversation. And I've intentionally refrained from using calm, because of how it can be seen. But just having that verse and sharing word, sound, power around peace, which I am going to give us a little moment. If we could just take a really deep breath together and just hold that breath with sacred intention, clear out any vestige in any part of your cellular structure, your tissues, your muscles, your body systems, and breathe out anything that interferes with the peace in your soul, body, mind, spirit, and consciousness. When we breathe together, we get an opportunity to really restore peace in our individual selves. And if we do it within ourselves, then it influences like a ripple in the sea or in any body of water to everyone else. Many times we'll learn that when people come with all of their and this Isfetian opposite of peace, chaos, imbalance, disharmony, they will throw off your vibe, throw off how you feel. And so I'm going to share part of a piece that's called Love Vibes. Forever together is the love we have beyond any weather, eternal, tranquil, peaceful, intuitive, perfect, creative, loving. Did I say peaceful? Seasonal, temperamental to some, even though it lasts forever and ever. I ask that we remain blessed. Some say highly favored within this sanctuary, within our body, our soul, our spirit, our consciousness. Some say mind. I say just be kind to one another so that we can strengthen our balance and harmony. We are within our source, within our creative forces. We dwell within and provide an ability to be one throughout all of eternity, of course, with your guidance, your blessing. Did I say that? That the Creator's blessings is in this? Did I say that? That is peace. That is tranquility. May we come together eternally, blessed, serene, with love vibes. And that's a piece that I used to do just to get some of my students in a space of love. And then we had this long, that's like a whole dissertation and postdoctoral research piece on its own. What do we mean when we say love? And why do we always seem to add love inside of peace? In a practical context, and because English is not everyone's first language, so we'll hear that term love and peace, those terms love and peace, reflected in a very different way. I always like to think of love as like M-E-R, an ancestral term coming out of the meta nature, not hieroglyphs. I'll make sure I clarify. The meta nature, the words of the divine, the words of nature, right? Very ancient, millennia upon millennia ago. And the symbol for mer is a agriculture plow. So it's like you're cultivating and you're nurturing and you're feeding and you're plowing, not plow to blang up, but plowing with compassion and care and that nurturance that I was hearing our beloved sister Jean speak of in terms of that mothering, maternal piece. The same thing I heard from Brother Christopher in terms of being that paternal, because if we're going to speak of maternal, balance-wise and harmony-wise, we got to think of the paternal. It's not that everything paternal is hard and harsh, or that everything that's maternal is soft and mushy. Yeah. So when we speak of love and peace, and again, in a practical sense, this would be a great time for each of us to, one, stay in a link with one another, whether it's wherever we are on the planet. Because while I reside in the Caribbean, a lot of my work keeps me in other parts of the world. And it's interesting because many persons, when you come across speaking outside of the traditional Western religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, persons aren't really ready to talk about peace and love with you. So we have to spend like a whole introduction of 30 minutes in a 1-hour presentation. Just to get everybody comfortable and clear that we're not here to come with any form of antagonism or any judgment when it comes to how we embrace spirituality, how we embrace love, how we embrace peace, even if it comes through a lens of a human rights and social justice. And notice I put the air quotes, discourse, because sometimes in having that discussion, being in a protest and march, persons misunderstand civil disobedience, nonviolence, like you're just going to be passive and let an entity take you out. When in actuality, if you use love and peace in its tranquility space, if you use love and peace in the embodiment of truth, justice, order, reciprocity, balance, divine righteousness, and harmony. Did you hear that? Truth, justice, order, reciprocity, balance, divine righteousness, and harmony. All of those words, 4 letters, ma'at. And most persons aren't comfortable because it's like, that sounds a little bit Egyptian. So we have to like reorganize, re-navigate how we speak of some of these ancestral terms and how we practice that, right? Some persons aren't comfortable with things that are around BIPOC or African grounded things or Asian grounded things or Eurasian grounded things or East Indian ground. See how we started to come up with all of the different boxes, and we forget that love, peace, tranquility, they're not only nouns, but they're actually verbs. And some people don't get that. And in them not getting that, when we come into the circles together and we begin to go beyond our personal sphere or our organizational sphere, I used to say our circle, but it's multidimensional. So I like to use the sphere because it's, like the earth. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a complete circle. Sometimes it seems a little bit oblong, sometimes kind of skewers. We're able in this time, this lifetime, doesn't have to take another century, to begin to whittle, knead the dough, to restore peace, justice, tranquility, and balance like now. And we can do that whether it's in our places of worship, whether it's in our places of recreation, whether it's in our places of education, definitely with the children. And when I say children, I tend to think of people like under 30, right? Because there's a lot going on. And it's hard to, sometimes it's hard, I should say, to even have the platform to have these types of conversations with some of the young people, because we are combating, back in our day, it was like 1 megabyte of data per second. But now it's like terabytes and bytes that are bigger than measure. Every squinet, not even a second, shorter than a second, that is being fed to not facilitate peace and tranquility and balance and harmony, much less love. And with that, I would just really encourage all of us to look at, what are some of the organizational affiliations that we have and how we can add that little element. I know in one of the, what I consider a very political, government-focused organization, where people are comfortable just coming and having meetings and organizing political education, political awareness, they're very strong-headed, especially amongst African nationalists. We started introducing self-care and meditation to even open how we start these sessions, so that before you come into the session to just come into this debate and warfare mode, why don't we try something different? And open up with that breathing and open up what we refer to as adiyanka, where you're dealing with how you breathe, your life force, and balancing, so that even what you're saying, how you're engaging in your debate and your discussions or your presentations, it minimizes antagonism. Because at the end of the day, what has thrown off our ability to deal with peace a lot of times is because many of us are not aware. I won't just say ignorant, but just are not well versed on what appears to be a difference, when in actuality it's a similarity that's inverted a little different than you're accustomed. And that's part of what, haven't mastered it. If it was mastered, then we wouldn't have to have these conversations all the time. But doing our, what we say here, one guava, fill up the basket, that's what we work towards, to be able to restore those elements of peace in Caribbean spaces. Because the other piece that happens in the Caribbean Americas is, you know, we have so many different, not only languages, and then the Creole and each of the respective islands and each of the respective areas, whether it's in Central America or South America, but we're dealing with a very unique type of colonization that is affecting the rest of the planet, and then the rest of the planet affects it. And sometimes we don't get the opportunity to just be balanced and calm and orderly, if we say that. There's not a lot of love. You come from such and such an island. Well, I's from Antigua, me ain't want to deal with you because you're from Trinidad, and me ain't want to deal with you because you're from Guyana, and me ain't want to deal with you because you're from San Andreas, and I don't want to deal with you because you're from St. Croix. I'm just saying that's kind of what happens. And so peace becomes like a Barbie doll pedestal. And we do it on September 21st. We might do it on Martin Luther King Day and a few other holidays. But that 365, 366, 24/7, every squinet, that's going to take some practice so that it becomes more than a habit and more than our behavior, but actually what we live and breathe and embrace for a while. I would also add, as I close, that one of the other pieces on the spiritual space is that we always like to incorporate, I'll say it in the Metanetra first, and then I'll say it in English. Amasu en pander, sauksu emkra en pander, au tu aura, maketi paherura. We give thanks and praise to the One Most High by all the names we use. We live each day daily for the One Most Divine, and we shall do it tomorrow, just as we do it today. And sometimes just something that short, that mantra to some, that hekau, words of power, words of praise to others, that chant, if you will, helps us to undo what I said was isfet, chaos, disorder, disharmony, so that we can restore ma'at and balance and harmony, and have that nurturing, cultivated, welcoming love vibe when we come together and we reason, whether we're in the Caribbean, Africa, Asia, Europe, Pacific Islands. Got to remember all those other spaces, little Indonesia, Melanesia, the planet, because where we are allows us to stay grounded in peace. And so for International Day of Peace 2022, I always encourage that we restore our balancing within the source, you know, by all the names we have, and that we respect one another's space. So when we really say things like namaste, we authentically are saying that the divinity in me respects and honors and loves the divinity in you. It's always a privilege and an honor. I'm grateful for being able to just share some words with our family. And thank you, Nana, Dr. Wale Idris Ajibade.
Thank you, sister. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you so very much.
That was not accidental.
Yeah, you know, a few days ago, we were working on a project in Nigeria, and many other projects, as you can imagine. I'll be traveling next week, so you know, getting that ready. We have a presentation in the Netherlands, and then in Ghana, and then in Nigeria. So I've been very busy, And all of a sudden, as if we're not busy enough, I received this call from Nana Anita, Chief Anita, and she goes, aren't we going to observe the International Day of Peace? And I was like, oh my God, we've been so busy. Peace is so important to us. And she says, yes, and everything we're working on is about peace. So we cannot miss this. This was just 2 days ago. And I was like, oh my God, now that's a responsibility that I have to definitely move quickly to the front burner. So I want to thank you all for rising to the occasion, for giving me this trust. I am so humbled. I'm so grateful. So I'd like us to wrap up quickly, just give concluding thoughts to today's event and our experience. Just take 1 or 2 minutes, please, to do that. But before we start, I'd like us to hear from Pradeep. Pradeep is an amazing, amazing young man who I have known since he was a teenager. We connected. He's online many, many years ago when I first started African Views and trying to figure out how to move it forward without any clue of how to run a nonprofit. I just knew that this is something that needed to be done. And for whatever reason God has chosen me, I have to give it my best. So I ran into Pradeep. He actually just contacted me online. We started to talk. This has been about 13 years now. And Pradeep is now a grown man, and he has been doing tremendous things in the world. He travels often to the Netherlands. He, has been in a few places in Europe, and has been working across Africa, especially in East Africa, from Rwanda to Uganda to Kenya. I've been doing some tremendous work in agriculture. I can't be more proud of what he's doing. It's my pleasure to introduce to you Pradeep Sapkota, a real treasure and a true joy in our midst. So Pradeep, if you're still with us, do take a few moments to talk about peace, and especially in your community and your experience traveling in African states and other cultures. Thank you. Unmute and speak. I know it's really late for you now. I don't know if you're still there. So anyway, I think maybe Pradeep is no longer with us. I think he probably fell asleep or something, because he's in Nepal, which is a different time zone to us. All right, so let's assume our concluding statements. I will start again with the Honorable Gandikota Ayana. And please accept the honor of being a doctor today, because you are indeed qualified and representative of that designation as we all had today. So accept it and make a concluding statement about today's event and the International Day of Peace and our observance of it. Thank you. I think he too has left us, so well, it's just us remaining. So therefore, I will yield to Jean.
Thank you, Dr. Wali. Feel truly blessed to connect with everyone here today. And I do hope on this special International Day of Peace, we can continue to stay connected and work towards the world peace. Everyone can make a difference. I have absolute faith in that. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. Wonderful. Thank you, Jean. Thank you for honoring this invitation. Let's go to Lady Doctor Felice Nkomo. Please give your conclusion.
Thank you so much. I mean, I'm truly grateful to be part of this conversation. I actually really like, the the personal stories, we shared, spiritual belief. I mean, more often, people in a public discourse debate, they are often divorced in terms of what's happening in their hearts. They always consistently communicate what's in their head. And in fact, I think this conversation has grounded the notion that we can't talk peace when in fact there is no spiritual congruence between your spirit and your mind. And that other things are actually an addition of, but in fact, when you have a spiritual misalignment, you're always going to struggle with actually leading or having a peaceful life, because consistently every circumstances that you're confronted with will actually come straight, and really bother you deeply. But I really, really appreciate it, and I just hope that it's really not going to be the last time where we meet again, converge, and reflect on this discourse that affects humanity. I think because all of us strive for peace in everything else that we do. Thank you very much.
Thank you indeed. Thank you so very much. My brother, Mr. Campos, please, Dr. Campos, please give us your statement.
First, I have to say thank you from the deepest recesses of my soul. I am grateful to you, amazing, beautiful, talented, powerful beings. Thank you. My sister in the Caribbean, I can't wait to get up with you. We will talk. It's I find myself to be moved to a challenge, and that challenge is what can we do moving forward? And the challenge that I want to present, and I recognize and respect how busy we all are in our individual communities, but I do believe that we should use the benefits of those terabytes and gigabytes and technology to combat the disinformation that is being disseminated by engaging in potentially maybe once a month a podcast, some sort of communicative platform that allows us to impact the countless lives and souls that are needed. It should be called the African Views podcast, where we take on conversations such as these, conversations based in love, based in humanity, conversations to bring our souls back to balance. Sometimes we just need a mother sister to say, breathe. Sometimes we need our brothers to say, breathe. And to hear it from each other at whatever place in our lives that we are, I think can have an impact on so many others. To see the diversity of our group, to see the diversity of our thoughts, and to see that our diversity doesn't divide us, I think could make a difference. So I want to humbly ask that we communicate and we try to see if we can put that together. Because I do believe that this serves a divine purpose in impacting so many more who are in pain, who are in dis-ease, who are in chaos out there. I believe this is possible.
Brilliant.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely agree with you. And
Yeah.
I will take you up on that, because that is something that is so desirable and so important. I think, we used to do this many years ago. As a matter of fact, we started it long before the Zoom era. But I think there's a need for this particular purpose, and I completely subscribe to it. I think this is a meaningful effort. It's so important that we do this, that we can actually impact society with insightful, with our insight and our effort and knowledge to change hearts and move people to a greater level of integrity or observation of spirituality, where we're able to also, as Sister Felisa mentioned, talk about this issue of peace without having it completely rooted in religiosity. I think that neutrality is so very important and actually embraces all kinds of perspective, including spirituality and spiritual beliefs. So I think this is I agree with you. I think I will work on that. Because it's very dear to me. I think you nailed it. I didn't believe you're gonna say that, but you did. So we're gonna move forward with it. I thank you very, very much. I will ask Dr. Chanzira to please close the program with a nice spiritual meditation or prayer, just to close the event. I think it's been a wonderful event. Happy Day of Peace to every one of you and all who were able to join us before. I think it's a remarkable, remarkable event. I thank you from the bottom of my heart for honoring it.
May we quiet our mind, body, soul, and spirit as we humble our energy to restore that balance, to restore that harmony, to restore that love, and to transform our entire global space with the peace that we deserve, the tranquility that we pray in action for, with the harmony and the balance of our infinite, most infinite source, the Almighty Creator, Mother, Father, Almighty Creator, in all ways that allow us to keep that truth, justice, order, reciprocity, balance, divine righteousness, and harmony as we honor peace every squinet of our lives into eternity. Dua, Ashe, Amen, Amen. Oh.
Amen.
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 Lovely to see you all.
Kosikulele.
Oh, was Africa.
Africa.
God bless Africa.
Hablas
Yeah.
Africa. Malupaganiso tumlawayo.
I wish you a lovely evening. All.
Bye. Thank you.
Sikulena. Woo! That just
All right.
was
That
something
means
a
that
while.
Give thanks, give thanks.
we are the committee for that program that was proposed by
Done.
Honorable Christopher about hosting this program, ever so frequently. I don't know if you want to make it a monthly, weekly, but I think it's something we should do. I really agree with you.
We could start off monthly. We can engage in conversations and we could send out messages and say, okay, this is the topic, this is what we want to do. And then we could plan it accordingly and on an as needed basis.
I'm on board.
Amen.
So
Okay.
anyone
I
else on
already
board?
put it in the chat. I already put because we have a broadcast Us Speaks, and that's sometimes we get a little bit radical, sometimes we get a little bit all together, and sometimes it gets a little bit heated. However, the focus is so that we can restore our humanity and build legacy.
Amen.
That's what it's about. It's about restoring our humanity, specifically restoring our shared humanity and building legacy, because and then doing it. Sometimes we have a lot of music. Sometimes we drop a little dance in there, and it could be liturgical dance. And sometimes we put some artwork. Other times we get all the techies and they start putting all their IT flow, so there's like some options, and that would allow us to put it inside of African Views and put that link on every platform that all of us have access to at the same time.
There we go.
So we've got some options within YouTube, Facebook.
That's right.
Instagram, TikTok.
That's right. All of it.
StreamYard.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
So there's some opportunities for us to be able to, and then we have some brothers and sisters that's going to do that translation piece. Some of us are good with, like, I'm comfortable with certain languages, but I'm not fluent in Dutch or papiamento.
Oh, papiamento.
Yeah, right. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, my mother speaks that, but I didn't get that one. My older
Yeah.
brothers got that, you know,
Okay.
but I'm just saying, I think it's important so that we have that, you know, if Swahili, however we're navigating, so that persons will feel welcome when they see it and hear it, even if we don't get it in our first broadcast, but as we're moving forward, having persons sharing what we're bringing forth in these multiple languages so that we do not allow one language, you know, this monolingualism to run things. Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
This is
All right.
Thank you.
I'm so
Great.
excited.
Thank you.
Blessings.
Let's,
Bye.
Say bye now.
Molly, please send a
Thank you,
copy of the recording.
of course. Thank
Thank
So
you.
the recording will be available, and then we'll be able to share it and broadcast it from there.
Thank you so much.
Amazing
God
day.
bless you all.
Blessings,
Happy Peace
everyone.
Day.
Stay safe
Thank you.
and
May
stay
peace be with
well.
you all.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
bye.
Shalom Hatep.
Thank you, bye.